Hopefully this works because I haven't recorded video on this computer in a long time because I don't really need to. It's music production pretty much only. So what you have here in yellow is my bass root progression. It's very tried and true, very simple. I'll play it for you. This is an E minor, and it goes 1, 7, 4, 5, 6, and this is technically the fifth, but over here we have the, so I inverted the root, the bass root, and the fifth. So this note up here is the 3, and that, so this is technically the root, and then it drops back down to the root here. So that's what that sounds like. And once again, very simple, very tried and true. I try not to do too much with it. I added obviously accent notes. You have a third here, a third here. I hold this root out over the 4 and the 5 because it acts as a sus4 over the A and a third over the B. And then I jump up to the fifth here before resolving to the third on the latter half of those two measures. And then back up here, once again, like I said, I inverted the root note in the fifth. And then back here again, it's the 1 and the 3 again. So that's just to really give the part a bit more color and character and fill out that frequency bandwidth. So what I do, I want you to pay attention here to these 3 green MIDI maps, not these peachy things. Don't worry about that shit. What I like to do is I like to keep it rhythmically very, very simple and bare bones when it comes to writing like these foundational string parts. You know, I try to do it fairly quickly. I wrote all of this in maybe 20, 30 minutes. And what I'm trying to do without, you know, using the assistance of rhythm, because rhythm and stroke and strumming pattern and all that, that's stuff that you can use to accent your note selection later on. What I'm trying to do is allow the note selection alone to help dictate the thematic tone of the part, and like how it should make you feel, or how I would like to make you feel, or the things the feelings or secondary emotions that I wanted to harken to. So here's what the first one sounds like, along with the bass root progression. Very basic, you know, very kind of sing-songy, sad, but, you know, pleasant and you know, angelic at the same time. You know, you obviously have your major root here that's held over that first root minor, and above that you have its relative third, and then you jump to the fifth. You know, it gives it a nice, like, you know, warm, you know, choir-esque feeling. And then over here, I like this a lot because this is where that root changes quickly on the bass. So I have the relative fifth, and instead of ascending with the root progression, it actually drops to the relative third over that B. But through all that, we maintain that A because it drops from the A to the G. So you get this transition. You get that nice 2-to-1, you know, full step drop, which is, you know, very, very calming. And I like it over here too because on the repeat, it resolves to up 1 step to the third and down 1 step at the same time. So you get this nice split, you know, you're kind of going up into, you're kind of like opening up into a harmonious melody. So I like that one a lot. Like once again, very sad but soothing at the same time. This is the second one that I wrote. Whoop. So I like that one. I like this one. It's definitely even sadder, mainly because of these 2 notes here. Let's see if I can. There we go. That 6/5 dissonance, that half step there, that semitone, that dancing between those 2 intervals is very, very like eerie and ominous. Yeah, that 6/5, even more so than a 3/2 in a relative minor. So the dance between these two really give it that feel, and then they conclude on the major. And then on the next part, they conclude on the relative seventh to the major root to give it kind of this weird, eerie pull. It's like it's not falling on the exact note that it wants, but that's great because it also falls over, once again, that fifth there that's going up from the fourth and resolving to the sixth on the next measure. And that diminished seventh, the seventh to the major root, falls on the minor root. It's a gentle like swoon fall. It's like a roll into that note, and that's of course the relative third to this note here, and it's also the minor root. And then up here, this is the G, the major is the fifth relative to this note, and over here it becomes the root. It's actually the root on this measure here with the fifth below it and the fifth in the bass. And we can actually hold that D out over the next part because D is the root of the next measure, and that G now becomes an A. It's pulling that major note up into something. It's like it's going to resolve upwards, which is really, really cool. And and you feel like it's going to go to the B, but when it comes back around, it actually goes to the C again. And that note, because it's like one semitone above, it's like kind of pulling you out of place and making you feel uncomfortable. And it's great. It's kind of like it's kind of like a bone chilling feeling. It's a kind of like a nice. It's kind of like a desperate weeping more than it's a sad weeping. You know, we can all agree there's many forms of crying, and like it's kind of like a what do I do now weeping. You know, helplessness. And this is the final one. This one I got inspired. I was just going to do those two until after finishing that one I came up with this one. This one's going to be slightly higher in the register because I didn't want to drop into the 2 range. So this starts on G4. Similar idea with this dissonance here, but it's on the 3 and the 2 as opposed to the 6 and the 5. So it's going to give it a slightly different feel. Let's listen. Similar feel, but definitely like more energy and more of a finality. You know, that it feels very conclusive. You know, it feels like a wrap up. It feels like closing the chapter on something. Those are the kind of feelings that evokes from me. You know, as opposed to like this would be like in a hero's journey, this would be like the down point. This would be like end of second act, and this is like climax stuff right here in terms of note selection. You got your 3-2 to the 7, which is obviously the relative fifth to the major root, and then you do the 3-2 to the relative 5, which is obviously played here as the relative fifth to the minor, and it shows up again here as the root note because this is where the B and the bass is, and this is the relative fifth under that, so it's fifth in the bass once again. And fifth here, fifth here, fifth, fifth, fifth. So I'm writing the fifths here in that 3 range because once again, like I said, I moved everything up in terms of octave. And this is nice because that D over the G, that's the relative 7th. So it's an add 9. And it's a nice add 9 because you got for this whole measure you got the 9 and then it pulls up into the E, which is that third, and it's also once again the minor root. So it starts off like you want that whole note to pull itself into place, and it finally does that in the next measure, and then drops again to the major 7th, which is a huge favorite of mine. And obviously the D and the B, that's the relative 3rd and 5th to the G of this measure. And you can hold that D through. That is the minor. That is the bass root progression right there. So that's the 1, and below it you have the 5th and the 3rd. And I added those. I originally just wanted it to be the A, but I added the F3 there because we're starting to get into really high territory here, and I really wanted this last measure to feel big. So that's how I go about using strings to help get a feel for what I want to do thematically. And then from there I'll build a drum part, and I'll transcribe all this on guitar. And once I have my guitar in hand and have a basic understanding of where I want to go in terms of bass root progression and melody, that's when I start injecting things like strum pattern and mixing up the rhythm. All those things for me personally play, while they're very, very important, the note selection will always better dictate the feel of a part for me and like what I want to convey emotionally. Maybe not in terms of groove, but in terms of like, I want this person to feel, I want the person listening to this to be uncomfortable. I want them to be sad. I want them to be angry. I want them to feel hopeful, yada, yada, yada. I make all those selections. I choose all those things, and I try to achieve those things through note selection. So there you go. That's how I write music.